Good morning and welcome to another podcast from beautiful downtown Crestline. Let's have Tora Kitty hi to her adoring fans if I can find her. What the hiss? Where are you? There she is. Tora, pretty kitty. Hello. Good kitty cat. Good girl. All right, let's get you treats. Uh, okay, so this is beautiful downtown Crestline in the San Bernardino Mountains. Treats for Tora of Southern California's Inland Empire. I just typed a bunch of stuff and my cursor was not on the in the box. Hi Howard, Witta, John, Jason. Hello everybody. Okay. My fan is turned off. We gotta fix that. Hi Lily. Let me grab the thingy and turn on the fan. The ceiling fan. 1, 2, 3, 4. Crank it down. And down again. Now it's on low. I've been puzzled for years about why ceiling fans start up on the highest speed. Apparently, when the fan is stationary, that is not moving, it needs a lot of power to get started. Therefore, it starts on the highest setting with the most power. Okay. You learn something every day. Yes, I feel like a fool. I paid off my student loans. Had to give up my home to do it. I have this little cabin or cottage, whatever you want to call it, and I'm happy here. But I used to have 2 homes plus my son's house. I lost 2 and just barely hung on to 1 to live in during the crash of '08. It killed my retirement fund, sent me into bankruptcy, and you know what? I survived. And for about 2 years, I still had a car, and then I had to give up the car too. '08 was terrible. There was no work. People were not buying books because they were barely scraping by. Oh man, cat hair all over me. Wonder where cat hair came from. Or, yeah. So it was a really tough time. And frankly, I couldn't find a job that paid enough to keep the car to go to work. Oh, Jason was working security in a mall. So was my son. Anything to make a few bucks and pay the bills. Oh, part of my problem is that I'm quite physically disabled and my brain isn't working right, but it's getting a little better. I make the rounds of the house 3 or 4 times a day and before I leave if I'm going somewhere. I seem to have a sore throat this morning. Well, anyway, I have to constantly make sure that I turned off the water, I turned off the stove. Sometimes I miss the garden faucet and it runs all night, which, well, it drips. I set it to drip, but that kind of kills my water bill. My washing machine quit working and cannot be repaired, so I'm washing things by hand while I search for either a used machine I can afford or, horror of horrors, a credit line to buy a new one. I'd rather not. It means going into more debt. Naturally, when I didn't need a washing machine, there were people trying to give away their old machines because they bought new ones. Now that I need one, there aren't any. And I'm really wondering about the markets. When the stock market tanks, the little guys lose, the big guys win. We have more and more wealthy oligarchs who are more and more wealthy. There's cat hair on my computer. Oh, that's my hair. Oh, the horror, the horror. I think, is that a scratch? No, it's a cat hair. I'll have to do some dusting. Anyway, when interest rates rise, the little guy pays more, the big guy gets more. And frankly, my real problem with this is that the big guys are not, strictly speaking, American. They're international or multinational or just plain foreign. We're borrowing money from China. They don't have money to lend. That's the weird thing. Their economy is tanking. So I guess the only money they make is when we pay interest on phony baloney money that we supposedly borrowed from them. Even with slave labor and child labor, China is not profitable as a nation. And don't kid yourself, there are no private companies in China. They all answer to and are controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. Hi, Tora. You've come to pester me, haven't you? Yes, John. Earn billions tax-free and put our savings in hedge funds. And so taxing corporations is not going to solve anything. They just raise their prices. And our, 2 weeks to slow the surge, to keep the hospitals going and not overwhelmed with too many patients, became 2 years. And we are not totally free, but we're getting there. I still have to put on a mask and get my temperature taken and stuff like that when I see a doctor. or go to a clinic for a lab test. Or when I get a ride to the doctor from a service, wear a mask the whole time in the car. Well, in the car, that might be a good idea if everyone is masked up. You're in close quarters. And there are other things besides COVID that you could catch. Can you guys hear me? John hears me. Lily can't hear me. I'm not muted. Oh, I can send feedback to YouTube. Huh. I don't know what to send today. I've never seen that little box before showing me Spanish language commercials. You know, those ads. My high school Spanish is not that good. I usually can't even tell what they're selling. And when a video has too many ads, you know, like every 3 to 5 minutes, I see another ad, I just quit watching that video. Sorry, Lily. I don't know what to do for you. Sometimes you've unintentionally muted your sound. So you need to check that out. So I paid off my student loans. I borrowed a total of $15,000 over 4 years. By the time I paid off my loans, after making many, many payments over the years, something like 15 years of payments, I owed $35,000. The interest was more than the original balance of my loans. I had consolidated them, not knowing that that was a trick that allowed them to double the interest rate and charge all kinds of fees. And making the minimum payment didn't even cover the compound interest. That happens once in a while, a cloud of smoke when I put out the cigarette. I'm on my very last pack of the fancy English cigarettes that Gil at Cardinal Sin sent me. Next time, either someone offers or I have the cash, I'll see about trying the red Dunhills. I'm pretty sure the green ones are menthol, and once in a while I want okay, check the sound on the actual video. There's little icon on the bottom left. When you choose restart in STAD instead of shutdown, it fixes many problems. Okay. Hi, Tora. Tora's being cute. I'm almost out of cat treats, so I'm rationing them. Okay, well, I could make them last at least 2 or 3 more days, but in theory, I'm going to the grocery store today. I'm not walking well, so we'll see. Wow. So where was I? I don't know. Washing clothes by hand is not only more work, it actually uses up more water. And since the kitchen sink doesn't hold that much, I tend to over soap things and then I have to rinse them more. But I'm working on measuring the laundry detergent. But when winter comes, I don't know. Well, at least I get to wash the clothes indoors. I might resort to a laundromat, but the laundromat is actually very expensive compared to washing at home. There are some fluff and fold services around here, but they're even more expensive and I don't know. I would have to do some major sorting all at once instead of when I'm ready to wash things, I pick out what I need sooner rather than later. And some things are just too dirty. I'd be too embarrassed to send them out. In particular, the pair of jeans I was wearing when I broke my back, I couldn't get them off. They were skinny jeans and a little too tight. And with my back broken, I could not pull them off. So I wore them for a week, partly because I put off going to the emergency room for 3 or 4 days. Howard wants to know, will my interview with Solaris Blue Raven be recorded to be played back, or is it only live? It's live for free, but I think you have to subscribe and pay money to listen to the replay. You need to check out the website, but I think that's how it works. Of course, if it's, past your bedtime, there are ways for you to tell your computer to record the audio in a file on your computer to listen to later. I've never actually done that, but I know it can be done. Hi, Jan. I'm trying to type. The live interview is free on Solaris Blue Ravens show, but I think you have to subscribe and pay to listen to the replay. Oh, and there is a chat room during the show on the website. I don't remember the name of the website or even the name of the show, but it's all over Facebook. And you can look at my page, even if we are not Facebook friends. I haven't made that private. And then, of course, there's Ancient of Days with Tessa B. Dick and Tessa B. Dick, author, and Tessa B. Dick, My Life on the Edge of Reality. I could not get YouTube to post the link to my YouTube this morning on My Life on the Edge of Reality. It can't find it. St. Vincent de Paul, Witta. I think they might have an office near here. Salvation Army. Yeah, they'll want to save my soul, of course. I don't need a dryer. I have no way to hook one up. I don't have a gas hookup for a gas dryer, and an electric dryer would need a 220 outlet for the electricity, and I don't have one of those. I've looked into getting the 210 or 220, whatever you call it, the very high voltage, like everyone has in Europe. And I would have to replace the entire switch box, and that alone would be $1,000, plus the cost of putting in the high voltage outlet, and I'd have to figure out where to put it. There's no room in the house. At one time, I had a cute little dryer that worked on the 110 or 120 electrical outlet out in my shed. One of my sheds has electricity, but those are expensive. They're all expensive now. But I have looked into ways of getting a washer. The gas company, of all places, is supposed to provide a high efficiency washer, washing machine for clothing for low income people who don't have high efficiency appliances. And I do still have the old Whirlpool, or no, it's an old Maytag. So I could show them it isn't high efficiency, but they aren't doing it. Their bozo who came out a couple years ago to see my water heater because it runs too hot, turned down the thermostat and called that problem fixed. Well, my water heater is set on vacation. That's where it's supposed to keep the pilot on but never light up and heat the water. The water's still coming out scalding hot. And I worry about the safety of a situation like that. the gas company will sell me a washing machine on monthly payments added to my gas bill. Of course, then if I can't make the payment on the washing machine, they turn off my gas. But it's a possibility. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Thank you, Wita. Yes, it doesn't sound safe. I know what to look and listen for. If it seems like it's about to blow up, you turn it off completely. It'll start making noise and there'll be air bubbles in the water. Oh, hi, Oswald. Making coffee. You're just in time for me to be ready to recycle coffee. Tora already said hi to her adoring fans, and I already mentioned that this is my last pack of the fancy Dunhill cigarettes. Next time I'll get the red ones. Oh well. Oh yeah. And now that I'm retired and I can sleep, I'm allowed to sleep in. I can't. I'm tired in the morning, but not sleepy. So let me go recycle some coffee. It'll only take a minute. But I'll be back, so hang in there. Dum-de-dum. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. What appears relieved, how precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Yes, I love to sing in the bathroom. Oh, Oswald, I feel like a fool because I paid off my student loans. Oswald is smoking Peter Stuckabye's Stockholm Syndrome tobacco. Never heard of it. I paid off my student loans. Had to refi my house to do it, and then the crash hit in 2008 and I lost the house. Because I couldn't make enough money to make the house payments. It sucked. But I still have this little house, and I'm happy here. The rose bushes are awesome. The lilacs are incredible. They grow like weeds. Every year I cut them back and they come back bigger and badder the next year. Oh. Well, Oswald, it looks like the government will pay off your loan and working people will pay the government. What else is new? Ah, Lord. Sometimes I feel like a slave to the cell phone. It pages me, and I'm supposed to frantically search for it and grab it and see what it wants. It's kind of like having a 2-year-old toddler around the house. Yeah, I fortunately never signed the application for a student loan when I foolishly signed up for classes at National University. I thought I might get an MBA and that might um, increase my resume for job applications as well as, not only more likely to get a job, but it would be more likely that I'd get paid more. Within a couple weeks, I realized that their textbooks were substandard. Their business law textbook didn't even include the Uniform Commercial Code, which is the backbone of business law. It mentioned it once, just mentioned it in passing. Never discussed it, never quoted any of its paragraphs, whatever you call them. I keep forgetting words. Never quoted any part of it, never discussed it, just mentioned it once. Their professor couldn't answer any of our questions, like, what are we supposed to do with this assignment? It isn't clear. I don't know, you figure it out. And the facilities, well, they didn't have a classroom for us. So they were renting a conference room in a very cheap, I don't know, it was hotel or motel, but it was cheap. And we were supposed to make slideshows on the computer. I forget what they're called now. Nobody does that anymore. And their computer really wasn't that great, but the big problem was we weren't there to learn how to, make a slideshow on the computer. And there were all kinds of glitches because we didn't know what we were doing. So I never got the student loan. I just dropped out of National University. And I was so disappointed because I had actually taught a course there. I taught American literature. And I thought the students were awesome. And at that time, I was actually in a classroom and I could order films or videos to play for them. But PowerPoint, that's it. Thank you, Jan. Yeah, we were not there to learn how to set up a PowerPoint. We were there to learn how to manage a business. And the first thing we had to do, the first week of a 6-week course in which we attended class twice a week and met as small groups as often as we could. And we were all struggling to learn how to do a PowerPoint. Plus, it wouldn't play my PowerPoint from my thumb drive, so I had to get permission to put my PowerPoint on the hard drive of the school's laptop computer in order to play it. Horrors, the horror. And many of the little bells and whistles I added were not working. Oh well. Anyway, I got out of that one just in time. They did try to bill me for tuition, and I wrote back that I dropped out because their instruction facilities and textbooks were all substandard, and they quit bothering me. I wish I had been able to keep up years before that. I think around 94, I took this correspondence course where you learn how to program computers, and as you go along, you get the parts to build your own computer. Of course, I guess basic programming or even COBOL wouldn't have done me much good today. Nobody uses those anymore. But I would have had a computer that I built with my own hands from parts. This was before, I think it was before Windows. It was before I ever had Windows. Remember WordPerfect? You turn on your computer, and since it's DOS, you type in the line on the screen. Oh, I would definitely be fired today for not being woke enough, Oswald. I wouldn't even try to get a job today. Well, for one thing, I forget things while I'm in the middle of a lecture and then I panic. But I just can't get in with the woke crowd. I'm all for diversity and unity in diversity. I don't want to separate people. I want people to get together. That's what Phil always said. In the late 60s and early 70s, a lot of the mostly older people were shocked at mixed marriages, people of different races having children together. And Phil pointed out that that was the best thing that could ever happen. One, it makes your genetics stronger. It makes healthier children because they are not so inbred They aren't all white or all black or all Hispanic or all native tribes. So they're less likely to suffer illnesses. And for another, they tend to be gorgeous, especially, Phil said, this is what Phil said, not me, Eurasians. Like American and Japanese, or English and Chinese, or French and Vietnamese, whatever. Beautiful people. And by the way, the world is not going to end if the climate gets warmer. By the end of this century, the oceans might warm up by as much as half a degree. And if the islands and coastlines are going to be flooded by the rising oceans, why do so many wealthy people live on islands and coastlines? Is Martha's Vineyard going to be underwater? Is Malibu going to be flooded? Well, Malibu has a problem with the houses up on the cliffs sliding down into the ocean when it rains, but that's because they're foolish enough to build a house that close to the edge of the cliff. Oh, let's see. Oswald says Eurasian now is used by Putin's brain philosopher, Alexander Dugin. Isn't he the guy whose daughter was killed in a car bombing? To describe Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and Russia as a geopolitical bloc. Well, you know, Eastern Europe is Eurasian. The people who've been there for hundreds of years. I mean, there have been multiple, in the distant past, invasions by Mongols and Huns and other tribes, primarily from the steppes of Central Asia. And do you know that the Chinese are not all one race, at least according to the Chinese? The northern Chinese feel superior to the southern Chinese, and there are some differences that they can see, even if we don't. And they can tell, the Chinese can tell which one you are. Eurasian primarily was that people here in California, and I guess in other parts of the US, often married Asians, white people and Asians, because, the soldiers went to Vietnam and our big business went to places like Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines. And we did not make a distinction between Pacific Islanders and mainland Chinese and Japanese. Oswald, Malibu probably deserves to be flooded and have the cliffs fall into the sea. I just can't dredge up too much sympathy for someone who loses a $5 million home in a flood. I doubt that their insurance will cover the whole thing, but who needs that much house? Really? It's ridiculous. much house requires servants, so you have to have a pretty darn good income to have one. Oswald says, yes, Daria Dugina died in the car Alexander was supposed to be in. There's a lot more Blasians now. Blasians? Well, anyway, islands sink and new islands form all the time, especially in the Pacific Ring of Fire. In the Pacific Ocean, there's lots of earthquakes and volcanoes. Oh, Oswald says Blasians are black Asians. Oh, okay. I guess that's Blasians. Okay. Now, let's see. Speaking of such things, I've always been told that my second, I don't know, one of my great grandmothers was Cherokee. But the Mormons think that they found her parents. I question it because my ancestor does not show up on the census rolls for that family. But the parents are supposedly white. But that doesn't mean a whole lot in 1820, thereabouts. If you were Cherokee and you looked white, and many do, you'd just say you were white. Blasians. Thank you, Oswald. Black Asians, Blasians. Okay. Well, I think that it's none of my business whom you fall in love with. And yes, I ended the sentence with a preposition, and I do not apologize. Whoever decided you shouldn't do that, actually, he was an American school teacher named Richard Busby in the 1800s, decided you should not end your sentence with a preposition. That doesn't make it so. In German, they're very sensible. They stick the preposition onto the verb. So wake up isn't wach, well, it is wachet auf in Bach's, wow, what is it? Is it, is it a fugue? I think it's a fugue. Toccata and fugue. But instead of that, they'll add it to the verb and say aufwachen or aufwachen. And Oswald says I've heard there's suppressed science that mixed race genetics increases the chance for psychological instability on a genetic level on top of the sociological stress, which is being addressed, of course. I seriously doubt that. I think the most psychologically stable person in the universe can be knocked for a loop, made to spin around under the right circumstances. But genetics is a very small part of what makes you, you. You live and learn. You make decisions. You get into or out of situations that might be good for you and might not be good for you. But some people you can see in hindsight, oh yeah, there were signs as early as 2 years old. My brother Rick was showing signs of being a sociopath, using people. But lots of people do that and then grow up to be not sociopaths. There are other factors at play. It's like, yeah, most abusers were abused, but not all who were abused, very few who were abused, grow up to be abusers. Most of us take it as a lesson for what not to do when we have the power, when we're the adults and they're the children. Okay, Oswald thinks there's two races of mankind, rhesus monkeys and RH bloodline of the gods. Well, actually, the RH factor really has nothing to do with rhesus monkeys. It had to do with how a rabbit's blood reacted to the human blood with the RH negative. But it looked very similar to a reaction they got with rhesus monkeys and certain blood types. We don't know where the RH factor came from. The RH negative means we don't have the RH factor. And apparently, we're the only species that has the RH negative. And some say we got it from Neanderthal, but that hasn't been proven. I don't know. It can be a serious problem, though. Yeah, that's a good point, Oswald. Simon Parks thinks that we RH negatives are aliens, and he's a British politician, so he's probably a lizard and would know. No, Jen, I don't remember a song by Blue Mink called Melting Pot. But as early as the mid 1960s, the schools were telling us that what we have is more like a salad bowl. Yeah, the lettuce is living alongside the tomatoes and the cucumbers, but they are not melted together. A melting pot would be more like a soup where the broth adds its flavor to all the ingredients. I don't know. I think we should celebrate differences. What would the world be like if we were all the same? Brave New World? Okay. Coffee colored people. Yeah. Oh, I wish I had some pigment in my skin. It's so pale. I've always been able to see my veins, all that blue, without even trying. And I can't go to the beach here in Southern California. I burn and peel. So there's no way I'm ever going to the Caribbean. It would kill me. You can die from a severe enough sunburn. I can go to the beach up north, like around Fort Bragg or even Sonoma, and in Oregon too. The sun isn't as direct up north. So I'd probably be okay in South America, but nowhere near the equator. Not Ecuador, that's for sure. Maybe down in Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, even Brazil. But since I don't like the heat, I live on the mountain because I'd rather go through winter cold than summer heat. I probably should stay put and maybe visit places if I ever have the opportunity. I almost had a trip to Spain, but the funding for the project fell through. So maybe somebody in England can drum up some interest and get me over there for a conference or convention. Um, Most of my roots are in England, but really in Scotland, Ireland, and Wales for the most part. My English ancestors are really Norman French, who came over with William the Conqueror in 1066. Oh, my eye itches. I'll take a Benadryl or something in a while. If I take it now, I might fall asleep. Oh, Anthony Peake. We're sort of friends. I've written blurbs for him for his books. I disagree on some things with him, but it's okay to disagree. I just don't think Phil was epileptic. Yeah, I don't know whether I've been on Anthony Peake's show. I think I have, not positive. Anyway, I still need to get a passport, and since I've never had one, it's rather expensive. But I have made the first steps. I had to get my marriage certificate and my birth certificate, and they are not cheap. The marriage certificate wasn't too bad. I got two copies for I think it was $35 or something. My birth certificate, though, was Los Angeles County, and it was $75 for one copy. And no discount for a second copy. So it would be $150 for two copies of my birth certificate. And I kind of wanted to give my son copies of those documents. Anyway, life is interesting. And I feel like a fool. I've been paying off my debt. I paid off my student loans. I keep paying off credit cards. The ones I have are secured by a savings account at the bank. The problem is, I'm paying interest to borrow my own money. And the interest they give me on my savings is 0.5%. but I needed to boost my credit score, and that was the quickest and easiest way. So now it's in the 700s, which is good. And it used to be in the 600s, which is between poor and fair. And you know, it goes up and down. It goes down when I use a credit card and comes up when I pay off the card. My next step is to get them converted to unsecured cards and close the savings because 0.5% interest, on which you pay income taxes, by the way. They used to allow you to make up to $600 a year in interest on savings without paying taxes. Not anymore. If you make 17 cents, you have to report it and pay taxes on it. My phone lit up. I don't want to keep my green thumb going. I got a message from, Walter Bosley. It's just a thumbs up. I sent him a link to the interview with Solaris Blue Raven this coming Friday. And if I missed any of you, it's on my Facebook page, all my Facebooks. Arrow Garden Sprout from Amazon Treasure Truck. I hate Amazon, but I love Amazon. It started out as an online bookstore, and now it apparently owns everything. You can get just about anything on Amazon, but I don't think they have tobacco products, even though they do have wine and liquor. Go figure. Lizards. I have a feeling that if you are not a lizard when you begin, when you reach a certain level in big business, especially if it's international, the lizards adopt you. It doesn't matter that much to me whether these elites really are aliens or alien hybrids. What matters is that they believe it. They think they are a superior species, and the proof is that they're turning proud, hard-working people all over the world into slave labor. You work hard, you produce something, and some guy who lives in a mansion with servants and all kinds of private facilities to, let's see, a bowling alley, a tennis court, a swimming pool, a dock for the boat, etc. He gets the cream off the top of your labor. And that's why Marxism sounds so good on the surface. The Communist Manifesto sounds like an argument for the dignity of labor. But in practice, it's just another way for the elites to skim the cream off the top and leave you with skim milk and not enough of it. After all, they need that skim milk to make their cottage cheese and their ricotta and their cream cheese. Yes, it's a metaphor. Oh, and now there are 87 more IRS agents, or there will be. I doubt that we have 87 wealthy elites in the United States for them to audit. And even if we do, they all have really good attorneys and accountants. No, those auditors are coming after you and me. Lovely. Just freaking bloody lovely. And yet we still have hope. I don't have tons of hope just because the Republicans are going to take over the Congress in January. That's pretty much a done deal. But, excuse me, what happened under George W. Bush? The crash. Obama took office in January of 08, but we were already crashing. Can't really blame that on him. It was Republicans who crashed our economy in the White House and the Congress. It was Republicans who passed this Patriot Act, which is supposed to be to go after foreign agents, not American citizens. But how has it been used? Oh, and they're targeting journalists who disagree with the party line. Oswald says America is the melting pot because we're the Wicked Witch of the West. That's cute. Remember, Dorothy tossed a bucket of water to put out the fire, and water splashed. Well, the Wicked Witch was setting the scarecrow on fire. So Dorothy picked up a bucket of water to put out the fire, and some of it splashed onto the Wicked Witch of the West. And the witch started screaming, "I'm melting! I'm melting!" But there's no place like home. The weird thing about all our problems now is that we're still better off than the rest of the world. In Europe, this winter, due to shortages of gas, coal, oil, and electricity, people are stockpiling wood, mostly in the form of wood chips, to heat their homes. And we're expecting an especially brutal winter. That would be great for the environment, burning wood instead of natural gas or heating oil. Oh, and our governor of California wants us to convert all our homes from gas appliances to electric. Most of us can't afford to convert. It is not simply a matter of replacing your stove or your water heater. or your house heater, your furnace. You need, as I mentioned earlier, the 220 outlets, or 210 or 220. I've heard it called either or both. The extra high voltage outlets. Many of us don't have one. And as I pointed out, it's $1,000 just to get the switch box changed into one that can manage a high voltage outlet. Then you have the cost of installing the outlet, and then you have the cost of installing a new appliance, buying and installing. And frankly, most of our electricity, even here in California, is made by burning coal. Of course, with the scrubbers in the chimneys at the power plants, we are not putting out much pollution, even with coal. And they found ways to take the soot from those scrubbers and make valuable products with it. Fertilizer being one of them. And of course, they're after fertilizer now. Apparently, it's bad for the environment to put nitrogen in the soil. Well, excuse me, but plant life depends upon nitrogen in the soil. There are a few plants like beans and peas, the legumes, that actually, they don't really make nitrogen and put it in the soil. They fix nitrogen from the air, and it forms these little bumps, these nodules on their roots that put nitrogen in a usable form into the soil. But most plants suck up nitrogen. They need it primarily to promote leaf growth, but also to be healthy. What in the world is wrong with nitrogen? Our atmosphere is more nitrogen than anything else, even more than oxygen, let alone carbon dioxide, which is a teeny tiny percentage. And I'm sorry that they call smog ozone. It isn't really ozone. Real ozone is O3. Normal oxygen has 2 hydrogen atoms. Ozone has 3. I'm sorry, 2, not hydrogen atoms. Come on, brain. Normal oxygen has 2 electrons, whereas hydrogen has 1. Come on, brain. Okay, so oxygen, 2 electrons. Ozone is oxygen with 3 electrons. And it's potentially explosive. Ozone, O3. It's what's up in our very, very high atmosphere. The ozone layer is actually mostly that O3. It's volatile. It can explode. It can really fuel a fire. And that's why I think maybe some of these cases of spontaneous human combustion are related to ozone. Not smog, which is mostly nitrogen oxide, along with some bits of carbon, not carbon dioxide, but just carbon, which makes it dark and gloomy. But O3, these cases of spontaneous human combustion tend to happen near electrical appliances, where a short circuit could cause sparking and the production of ozone, O3. You breathe that in, it just might set your lungs on fire. Or outdoors during a thunderstorm. You'd think that all that water, the rainwater coming down, would prevent combustion, fire. But if you are near enough to a lightning strike, that makes ozone, O3. You could breathe it in, it could set your lungs on fire. Well, if I were to put the high voltage, the 220 or 210 outlets in my house, I would be taking a chance on having just such an event. A big chance compared to the 110 or 120 lower voltage outlets of the production of O3, ozone. I have smelled ozone, the real thing. It's kind of a sick, sweet smell. It was when the plug for an appliance that was on 220 short circuited and went poof. It wasn't from the insulation burning off, it was from the actual ozone. You can tell when there's O3 in the air. Anyway, it's interesting, but scary. Uh, Gas, natural gas, whether it's propane or butane or the methane that comes in through a pipe. Is it methane or ethane? Methane. It is one of the cleanest burning fuels, if not the cleanest, that's readily available and easy to transport and easy to use. I will agree that hydrogen is cleaner. When you burn hydrogen, it makes water. But natural gas is very clean. Electricity is not. And we're already having what they call brownouts in the big cities, and sometimes rolling blackouts where it's out for an hour in this part of town and then out for an hour in a different part of town and rotating it because we don't have enough power on our electrical grid. So naturally, we're supposed to make all our appliances electric, which means high voltage, using a lot more electricity than, say, a toaster oven or a space heater. And we're supposed to plug in all our cars electric only, not even hybrids, by 2035, which is not that far away. We're supposed all our new cars are supposed to be all electric. When you plug in your car, you are not getting power from the wall, you're getting power from a plant that's either nuclear or fuel burning, whether it's oil, coal, or gas. And yes, we have a lot of windmills and solar panels. Well, they only work when the wind is blowing or when the sun is shining. Stupid neighbors. Oh, inconsiderate. No courtesy at all. Honking their horns. mom, one of the good things she told me was if a boy shows up to take you out and he sits there honking his horn, you just stay put and make him come to the door. Anyway, where was I? Solar panels work when there's sunshine. Windmills work when there's wind. And yes, you can store power in batteries, but guess what? Those batteries can't be recycled, they don't last forever, and they're made with minerals that are mined by children and slave labor in China, mostly Uyghurs, who are being persecuted simply because they're Muslim. China discriminates against all religions: Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, all of them. And Hinduism. Oh, man. Now, we have those minerals here. They try to tell you that we don't. What we don't have is permits to mine those minerals. In the United States, we have the cleanest mining, drilling, manufacturing, power generation in the world. And what are we doing? We're begging Saudi Arabia and Venezuela to pollute their environment more because they don't have such clean processes, to send us dirty oil that we have to refine because it's so dirty. Have you heard of Pennsylvania crude? The oil from wells in Pennsylvania historically has been so clean it hardly needed any refining at all. There was no gunk to filter out of it. That was the major selling point of Pennzoil, the engine oil for your cars, trucks, and other machines. Well, I think an hour and 23, I guess, is enough of me for anybody. So, since you're all so quiet in the chat room, let's save the environment. Let's really save it and do things that make sense, like quit buying products made by slave labor. All over the world, China's just a big, huge example. Oh, Howard would listen all day. Well, maybe you should make a playlist out of my old videos. I can't talk all day. Let's try to, thin out the forest so the trees are healthier. It doesn't make sense to save the trees when they all burn down in the next fire because they're too crowded and too unhealthy. So unhealthy that perfectly good trees are dying and creating a new fire hazard because there isn't enough water for all those trees. That's why we've had regulated logging until recently. Thin out the forest so the trees remain healthy. And let's try to remember that we're saving the environment for us, for humans. Yes, we want to preserve the spotted owl the rubber boa or rosy boa. We want to preserve fish and insects and lizards and cute furry critters. Sure, we do. But not at the cost of killing thousands or millions of human beings who either starve to death or die in floods and fires because we're not allowed to build sensible flood control and thin out the underbrush and unhealthy trees in the forest. We really need to do something that makes sense. What? The last member of his indigenous tribe in Brazil has died. There's more than one indigenous tribe, by the way. He lived alone in the Amazon for years? Wow. That's interesting, Jan. Well, there's that famous case of Ishi, the last of his tribe in California. Around 1920, he was actually living in a museum, but not confined. He was free to leave, but he didn't want to. He was allowed to maintain his own lifestyle. But there weren't any more of his tribe. He was the last one. Ishi. He was discovered starving by some anthropologists. He was starving because stupid tourists had found his food caches, his little stores of food in caves and other places, and taken them for souvenirs. Oh well, no one spoke his language, but I think they found a Yaqui, a member of a closely related tribe who could communicate even though the language was different. Sort of like if I tried to use my high school Spanish in Italy or my college German in Holland, the Netherlands. Let's not. Let's quit driving out small farmers who love the land and take good care of it. We don't need huge multinational corporations taking control of our food supply. That's stupid. Oh, it's supposed to be more, um, what's the word? Use fewer resources for a bunch of machines to water, fertilize, etc. Huge tracts of land than to have human beings actually tend the land. I don't think so. Factory farming is an abomination. Our local grocery store, a mom and pop store, actually offers organic produce from a local farm. I like that. Sure, it costs more, but the way prices are going on everything, it isn't so bad. Really isn't. Stupid phone, quit paging me. I'll catch you later. Wow. Anyway, let's try things that make sense. Let's quit asking some bureaucrat sitting at a desk 2,000 miles away how we should take care of our land. They're even telling us what we can do at our homes. Oh, and never live where there's a homeowners association unless you plan to get on the board and get all your friends on the board so you can keep them from telling you, oh, you can't paint your door that color, or you can't have that plant in your front yard, or you can't park in your driveway, you have to park inside the garage. What if you're only stopping for 5 minutes? You have to go in and out of the garage? Or your kids can't have a lemonade stand. Some cities do that too. Anyway, yeah, let's ask farmers and gardening enthusiasts and maybe a few scientists who are actual botanists, actually involved with plants, or actual experts in animal husbandry. How to do things right. Let's ask the real experts and not some bureaucrat sitting at a desk in Sacramento or Washington, D.C., or the capital of your state. Let's ask farmers how to take care of the land. Oh, let's see. Environmental Crisis in Tampa Bay by Natalie Ho. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're banning manure as fertilizer. Well, I don't use manure myself, but I use worm poop. They call it worm castings. It's worm poop, but it's very clean and nutritious and all that. In fact, yesterday I bought some worms. I wanted red worms, but they didn't have any, so I got night crawlers, earthworms, to improve my soil. I hope the raccoons didn't find them. Oh, the Piney Point Phosphate Facility that's also radioactive and going into Tampa Bay. That's nice. So we're going to see manatees and dolphins that are, or maybe it's porpoises, I don't know, that are radioactive. Lovely. Very freaking bloody lovely. Yeah, well, you see, they don't want us to grow our own food. They don't even want small farmers to keep their family farms. That's why they have that horrible death tax. When the children inherit the farm, they often have to sell off most of the land in order to keep their childhood home because of the government demanding taxes on property that has already been taxed. Every penny of income is taxed by the state and the government and the federal government. Um, the property taxes to the county, the sales taxes and other um, taxes and fees and permits on crops and livestock. These farmers pay taxes when they buy things and they pay taxes when they sell things. And then they pay more taxes on whatever is left over that they call income. And by the way, corporations don't pay taxes. They just raise their prices and you and I pay it. And of course, that hits the poor the hardest, followed by the lower middle class, followed by the upper middle class. The elite just don't care. They can afford to pay $5 for a 8-ounce bottle of soda. It isn't quite that bad yet. It is that bad if you want a gallon of gas in your car, depending on where you live. But no, they don't ask people who actually know what they're doing. They just do what will make a nice headline in the government controlled media. Just about every one of our news networks is just like Pravda, the Soviet news outlet. Pravda means truth. Yeah, true propaganda. Anyway, now it's $1 an hour and 36, almost 7 minutes. I've given up on just about all of my gardening this year because the raccoons this year are the young ones that are stupid, and they keep pulling up the plants to look for worms and grubs. And there won't be any worms and grubs without the plants. They don't like plain soil with no plants in it. Oh well. Uh, Now we've been lucky in the mountains. Early in the 2000s, we had rolling blackouts. But here in these mountains, they didn't last more than 30 seconds because we're also hooked up to a wind farm out in the desert. Of course, the wind had to be blowing, but it worked for us. But Los Angeles and other nearby cities were really suffering. Their power would be out for hours because the grid just could not handle the demand on a hot day. Another reason why I don't have an air conditioner up here. It sucks the power. But I am looking into getting a swamp cooler. The prices, though. Man, I could see that maybe a portable personal swamp cooler that you just point at yourself as you sit at your desk might be $100. But no, it's more like 200. I can't spend that kind of money. Okay, a swamp cooler, Jan, has a fan and a like wall of porous material, sometimes treated cardboard, sometimes cotton or wool or some synthetic fabric that's very porous. It has big holes, and you pour water into the swamp cooler to wet that fabric, that wall of fabric, and the fan blows air through the cold water, cooling your house and adding humidity. Now, up here, our humidity is so low that that's a good thing. It might not work so well in Louisiana, but that's, some people just hang a wet towel or sheet or blanket in front of a fan. It's the same principle. You're blowing air from a fan through a wet fabric. And the water cools the air. It doesn't use that much electricity. After all, it's just a fan, no compressor. It's awesome. And I had one for 10 years. I bought it at a yard sale for $5. It worked for 10 years. Not a bad deal at all. Oh, maybe I'll get a fan and hang a wet towel in front of it. Even a fan is likely to cost about $50. But that's a lot less than 200 for an actual swamp cooler. Just hang up a wet towel and blow the fan at it. I can't believe that we're supposed to stimulate the economy by giving all this money to corporations and then canceling what for most students is only a small part of their student loan debt. Well, they tried giving everybody money. How did that work out? Yeah, I paid off some bills with the stimulus check. The first one went almost entirely to a vet bill for my cat, who broke her leg somehow. She had a fight with something. Tora did, long time ago, 2020, 2 years now almost. No ordinary vet would see her. Oh, we don't do broken bones. We can take an x-ray for $150, but we don't treat broken bones. So I had to go to the emergency vet. They were the only ones who handle broken bones. And I'm grateful that Tora came home with a cast on her leg, but happier. They had given her some pain medication while she was there and some antibiotics to kill any infection, which is also a good idea. They cleaned up the owie on her neck, which tells me that she had a fight with something with teeth. Maybe a raccoon, probably not another cat. Not likely a skunk. She would have smelled like skunk and she didn't. But that pretty much wiped out the first stimulus check. And the second one paid some bills so I could keep the lights on, which was a good thing for me, but it probably added a bit to inflation, which is one of the reasons why we have higher prices today. But it's still a lot better than a PPP loan to McDonald's. The franchises can bill themselves as small business, and I get their point, but really, it's the responsibility of McDonald's to support their franchisees, not the American taxpayer. Oh boy. I know I'm yawning, but I'm not taking a nap. I have to get up and do things. It's morning. Oh, and my computer wants to do something with a security update and quality fixes as soon as I sign off. So I better sign off and do that. Let's see. Thank you all for listening and have a great day. Well, I typed it without any typos. I don't believe it. Thank you all for listening. I love my wonderful chat room. And remember Friday, I think it's at like 10 o'clock Pacific time. Maybe it was 9. I think it's 10. Have a wonderful week, month, and year. And look out, Farmer's Almanac says we're going to have a very severe, bitterly cold winter. Of course, when it gets up to 90 degrees on the mountain, I'm all for a little snowfall. All of you take care and be good and all that and be happy. The best is yet to come, and we're still so good, so much better than everywhere else that millions of people want to come here. We must be doing something right, but we need to do better. So I'll catch you all on another date and time. If not this Friday, then next Tuesday morning. Bye.